Hi folks, the story you're about to hear is true. The names and places have been changed to protect the guilty. It all started when I was out with my rod, cruising around on the highway having a good day. It was a Sunday afternoon. Just driving around and I ran out of gas. I ran into the most interesting fellow you'll ever want to meet. And I'll tell you, the rest is like a dream.
I ran out of gas in my rod. Can you give me a ride, man?
Yeah, come on, dude. Hop in my car. We'll head down to my crib and we'll check it out.
Okay, cool, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, man. Come on down by my house here and we can make a phone call.
Oh, man. I really appreciate it. Hey, man. This is such a cool car, man. What do you got in this thing? It really hauls ass.
It's not what I got in this thing. It's what I put in this thing.
What do you put in it?
Right alongside you, my brother.
Hey, holy moly, corn squeezes. Can I have some?
Go right ahead. It's good for the body. It's good for the engine. You look at all these fields around here.
Yeah.
This is prime land. This is where we raise them that good moonshine.
No kidding. You make this yourself?
200 octane, 200 proof.
Wow.
Take a swig, man.
All right. Oh, that's smooth, man. Wow.
Smooth and the engine loves it.
You run it in your car too?
Oh yeah.
Holy cow, man.
Besides 200 proof, she's 200 octane.
Oh man. All right, I guess I got picked up by the right guy.
We'll take care of you.
All right. Man, this is so cool. Oh, cool. You live in a farm, man?
Yeah, you could say that. It's a crib.
Okay. You live here, bro?
Yeah, you got a problem with that?
Well, no, as long as you got a phone. But you live in a chicken coop?
Dude, you'll see.
Okay, man. I need the phone.
Not a problem. Follow me this way.
Wow, chicken coop. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Rock. My guy's not going to be here for a little bit, so you mind if I hang out with you a little bit?
Not a problem. Why don't you have a sip and we'll show you what we got hiding around the shop.
Yeah. You can tell me a little bit how you do this chopping stuff. I never knew how they do that. Maybe after a couple of these, I'll try it.
It's a little secret, but after I have a little bit of that, sometimes secrets come out.
Oh, well, see, maybe I'll get some secrets today. That's great. All right, man, follow me this way to the barn.
I want another one of those.
Sure, why not? Wow, smooth baby.
Here, man, follow me this way.
Man, this is where you keep your cars?
Yeah, this is the custom shop. I mean, you don't have to have none of those big shops like Boyd Totterpin, you know. It's a lot of cool stuff can be built in the backwoods. Might want to take another hit before we pop in.
Yeah? Well, tell you what, this stuff is so darn tasty, I'll have another.
A little too hot.
Oh, baby.
This way.
Holy cow.
Rocky, man, I think I need to sit down, dude. I mean, I am buzzed.
All right, Rick, why don't you have a seat over here and I'll open up the garage door for you.
I'm telling you.
And here's a couple more of my brothers that just rolled in.
Hey, guys got an ambulance, man. Check that out.
I know we gotta haul some carcasses around.
That's right, man. You know, that's the
Good hauling parts for Midnight Auto Supply.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly, man.
You're looking a little thirsty. Parched after that long drive?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, here's the phone. Don't mind if I do.
Oh, man, those corn squeezings are good.
There we
I
go.
think
That'll help take the edge off.
All right. Wow, man, what is this? Is this a Cadillac?
No, it's not a Cadillac. It's actually a 1952 Chevy.
Holy moly. You know, I've always been really interested in finding out how this chopping and channeling and sectioning works. You know, but like I said, I don't know nothing about it. Man, can you explain this to me?
Sure. Well, this is actually a good one because of the fact that we've got all the wells here. We can kind of go around and see. This car actually is pretty radical, definitely to the extent of what they used to do over the years. But this one is actually, it has a top chop, which you can see the lines as far as kind of running around through here. I actually cut 5.5 inches out of the middle of the roof and dropped her down. And then the lines that you see actually running through the middle of the body, that's actually called sectioning. Sectioning is when you actually take a section out of the middle of the body. I always like to refer to it as the supreme task of customizing.
Sure.
Just because of when you do that, every single panel throughout the car has to be cut and modified. All the inner structure, all the braces and stuff as far as running around through. So you don't see people nowadays doing too much for sectioning just because it is so much work, and if you had to take it to the shop, it's quite the fortune as far as running around through it, the man hours to go around and do it. But this car actually had 4.5 inches cut out of the middle of the body all the way around. And when you section cars, usually what you try to do is you actually want to find the highest center point of the car, because if you're taking it out, you want to take it out even. If you take it out at the wrong place, now you're going to have huge differences between the top and lower half of the body. So that's where you'll notice it's kind of running through the middle. And I like the wheel well, like, so you can see you can actually do some games where you can one straight up and over the wheel well, so that way all the pieces actually still kind of come back together. I mean, nothing, unfortunately, when you get in it really is like, oh, that's right together exactly. You end up having to do a little cutting and pushing and shrinking and stuff to get it around. But that's where you see a lot of the different cuts as far as through. And on this car, when you first thought it was a Cadillac, as you can see, these are actually 49 Cadillac quarters. And
Sure.
when I sectioned this car, I like the look of the very big, tall fenders. You know, kind of reminds me a little bit like pontoon type fenders.
Yeah.
You know, so what I did is when I sectioned the car, is I originally didn't cut the fenders and taken this trim, which eventually will be on here. This is 49 Buick trim that's going to get mounted on the sides of it, and skirts will be running through it. But when I did section the car, what I did is actually went around the back side of the fender and dropped the whole body down, you know, and that way what ends up happening is I kept the fenders taller. But originally, these quarters actually ended up heading uphill, and I didn't like the looks of that. So what I did is I ended up going around and taking, after the car was sectioned and I had that welded, I ended up cutting another 2.5 inches out of the middle of the fenders, and that's where you see these extra jogs as far as running through. So what I did is I took 2.5 inches out of the front to nothing all the way back here, and that way what I did is actually brought the fenders down so they became level, and then kind of started forming them over like I was talking about the pontoon type fenders. And originally I always liked these caddy quarters, and originally what I did is I took the Chevy quarters and I formed them over so they became like a fin, because I'm kind of partial to the fin vehicles per se. And then I ended up at a swap meet stumbling onto the Cadillac quarters. So what I did is, with all that work, we grabbed the old cut-off wheel and the air chisel and cut those quarters off and grafted these on. So that's where you kind of see the green primer, you know, as far as running through. That was what I really wanted to do, and when I found the pieces, I made them fit as far as running around. top chop on this, you know, that's again taking that section out. When you do a top chop, I always say if you think of like an ice cream cone, if you cut the middle out of an ice cream cone, that tip is going to drop straight through. Once we cut that section out, the top roof is smaller than the bottom half of it, so it actually would drop all the way through. And that's where you see these extra pieces that's widened out here, and you can see this extra top around the top side of it, because what ends up happening that we did is actually cut this roof into multiple sections and widen them out and lengthen them out. In the middle of the roof, right by the windshield, you'll see an 1.5 inch piece that's there, and when you come to the back, you'll see there's a piece that's about 3 inches because of the fact of roofs are kind of usually tapered. They're a little narrower in the front, you know, and in the rear as far as the proportions. So that was all bringing all that stuff out to go around and fit. And then what I like to do is you can see this extra roof section up on the top side is, you know, you could actually run strips all the way across the roof, and when you do that, it makes for a lot of excess body work that you have to do. And trying to keep a clean look, that's where I went around and I'll take a donor top, put it on the top and weld it around through. I like to refer to that as calling scalping it, just like the Indians that go around and do it. You know, this car is actually scalped. And what I started end up doing with the top chop on this, there's been a few people that have gotten into chopping fastbacks, and fastbacks is what this car is, when the roof actually flows all the way back into the trunk, is one of the toughest roofs to chop because of the fact that it does it. And there's a few people that are cheating nowadays at right about this point here, they'll actually cut a line and just drop the whole back half of the body down so you don't have to actually cut into the trunk lid. Again, I don't like the proportions of that because when you look at the back, you see it tip around through. So this took a lot of extra effort, but this back trunk I probably had cut in about 35 different pieces. You know, this trunk actually, where it's real shallow here, used to go real straight up and actually cut around. So again, with the 5.5 inches out of the roof, I took 5.5 inches out of the middle of the trunk all the way down to nothing that you see at the end. So what I ended up doing is all the inner structure had to be cut out. had to take those pieces, widen and lengthen them out. And again, as you can see, the extra filler strips as far as through the trunk, because just like the roof, you know, when you take that stuff out, it's all too small. It'll fall directly back into it. But I think the actual look of the car all flows very, very nice.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's smooth. It's almost aerodynamic, man. I mean, like, you know, as boats are, you know, this one here just looks like a bullet.
And that's the key as far as customizing. You know, back in the day, everyone always wanted to make them look like they're going a million miles an hour while they're standing still, and, and shave off the extra stuff that doesn't need to be. And that's where shaving trim, kind of a telltale sign of the Chevys and the old Pontiacs, is there used to be a chrome strip that ran right across the top of the door. Then I figured, as radical as this is, we didn't want to make it easy tip off of what it is, so I actually removed and took off that stuff and formed it around into the cowl on the front side. And then getting to the front side of the car, if you look at the hood, you can see all the extra cuts that are running around the front side hood. Well, with chopping and sectioning this car, I actually did what they call pancaking a hood, which is actually taking a section out of the hood, kind of almost like sectioning a car. Because prior to that, this hood actually went straight, and with as low as the body is, it looked like a big, huge nose off the front side of the car. So what I did is, again, ended up going around and I took 3 inches out of the front of the hood, then nothing all the way to the back side again. And the same thing, dropping it down, and just like sectioning, the hood was short from the top half to the bottom half, so all these extra cuts you see are all relief cuts. They actually be able to pull the bottom and top sections out together to be able to go around and make it fit. And then the other thing is, with pancaking a hood as much as I did, that's kind of pushing it to the extreme of what a lot of people do. Usually they'll do an inch or an inch and a half. With sucking it down, it actually pulled it away from the cowl. So if you look at the cowl, there's actually 3/4 of an inch on the cowl that comes all the way to nothing in the edge, because that gap actually opened up from the whole hood being tucked around. So I actually had to rebuild that front section of the cowl as far as running around. You know, right now the hood is just kind of setting on it, because eventually I'm going to go around and have it open like the old Buicks. I'm going to hinge it to the side so it actually lifts up. Yeah. It's still there's still some stuff to do, but we're coming around. You know, so far on the car right now, there's about 25 pounds of welding wire that you see in the car. You know, from all these stitches.
Sure.
A little bit of our Frankenstein monster per se.
How many like man hours? So to get to where it is right now in this state, how many hours of man work or man hours have you put in the car?
It's, you know, it's one of those ones, people ask me that, and I probably should have kept track of it, but I probably really don't want to know. I mean, it's really a very intense amount of hours as far as running around. You know, with the sectioning, you know, like what you see to an extent right now, you know, there's probably 150 hours in sectioning the body right now, and you know, the time with doing a top chop, you know, there's probably about a good, you know, 60 hours of the chop right now, and it's there, but it's still not done yet. You know, we have to go around. I still have to cut the interior moldings, and we have to cut the glass. We have to cut the window frames. You know, so that's where a lot of times when people go to shops and try to have something like that done, there isn't many people nowadays that actually have the skills to do it. But you know, if they have the skills, sometimes the people can necessarily afford to have it done. You know, just because at shop rates now at $45 to $60 an hour, it doesn't
I couldn't
take
imagine
long.
what it would cost to do this.
I fortunately have to admit, I'm really good at having an eye to be able to look at stuff, to be able to know where to cut it, but it's still one of those things where you kind of go around and you want to take some measurements, because you need to go through with sectioning it. You need to look at structure and see what's kind of unusual, and I should have some pictures, is when I sectioned this car and kept the actual fenders up, I actually had to completely relieve the wheel wells, where the wheel wells are actually shaped like those quarters on the top, because the whole body dropped down in the structure. So you want to kind of look around and see what obstacles you have to work around, because you couldn't make those wheel wells too flat, otherwise when you lower it, the tires are going to rub and you can't go around and go through. But what I did with this car is I really thought that I wanted to do about 4.5 inches, and just to give me an initial idea, is I actually went around and I laid 4.5 inches of tape around where I thought I wanted to have it actually cut. Took some pictures of it and actually took an X-Acto knife and cut out, because that was before Photoshop and all that stuff, and I'm not a big computer guy. You know, I like my moonshine, but I don't like playing on the computer.
Computers, forget it.
So what I ended up doing is, like I said, actually cut out that tape and just put the picture back together and went, yeah, I like the symmetry of it. So once I kind of knew that I liked the symmetry, I went around and just started cutting into the car and doing the actual section.
I'll tell you, it's going to be absolutely, it's a work of art as it is. I mean, to me, it's something that I've never been able to even fathom. And I mean, how long have you been involved in chopping cars and sectioning stuff? I mean, did you learn this from someone specific, or is this something you just thought, man, I can do this?
I definitely, I got some pointers from my dad, you know, when the time came is, you know, my family's always been big into cars, and my dad first was more of a body guy, and my uncle was more of a mechanic as far as running through. So as a kid, I was helping Dad out as far as doing body and paint. You know, got pictures of me being young and holding a DA and DAing on fenders and things, but we did mild customizing, you know, never did any sectioning and stuff with Dad, you know, so I ended up going around and went through and actually went to Wyoming Tech, and I actually did go to school for it. At the time when I was there, again, they didn't do much for custom stuff. They were really teaching collision and refinishing.
Sure.
Because when I was at school, there was guys there that wanted door handles shaved and all that other type stuff, and I was doing it for them because they're like, hey, this guy can do this. Can you do this for me?
And credit,
and the teachers weren't happy about it, but they thought it was kind of fun to see a younger guy doing customizing. So being around the custom world, I really kind of gravitated towards it. It was just one of those things where like I said, I have to admit, I have an eye where I can look at something and kind of visualize it before I cut into it, and can kind of visualize what I need to really cut and widen and lengthen and do. So I mean, it can be, it's one of those things you can try to learn all you want about it in books, but that same thing, if you can actually apply it to your hands, that's
right.
I
mean, you definitely have to be a hands-on guy, and it's a lost art as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you know, when you think of what George Barris, you think of Darryl Starbird in the 60s, 50s. I mean, those are the only two I can come up with right now out of the top of my head.
Yep.
But that you just don't see this anymore.
Yeah, it's a neat honor occasion. I do run into some of the older guys that's been doing cars for a while, and they look at the stuff and they're just happy and kind of amazed to see a younger guy is building this stuff. Because honestly, a lot of guys that are our age are actually into, you know, muscle cars. They want a Cuda, they want a Chevelle. And what's kind of fun is with doing this, I've met up with a bunch of my buddies. You know, the Hoodlum Car Club we did, which is a bunch of guys that are kind of us goofy orphans that are into that custom thing. And you know, birds of a feather flock together.
Absolutely. And I know I've met you guys and I hung out with you guys, and you guys are definitely into that. And you do a heck of a nice job. And
Thank
man,
you.
I'll tell you, you know, like I said, this is lost art, and I'm glad you guys are still here to keep it, and you're in close in proximity to where I am, so I can come and watch.
Oh, you're more than welcome to come at any time, and it's one of those things with us. You know, we always joke around and say with us being younger, I wish we had the huge pocketbooks to be able to go around and get some of those old customs, but I like a few of those guys, you know, that are a little more well-to-do where they can afford them. I said, you know, I appreciate it, but we're going to try to build history instead of buying history.
Exactly.
That's what we're working on trying to do.
And that's the whole thing of hot rodding to me, is keeping that whole thing alive. And I mean, it's important to our kids and the future generations that this is something that was a part of our lives. I mean, you know, from our fathers to even now our grandfathers. I mean, we're just need to preserve this as an art and a way of life, and you guys are definitely doing it.
Well, thank you. I agree. I think it was a fun time, and you know, if we can get some people rekindled, and you know, let's face it, we can get some of those guys to sell those Chevelles and maybe buy a 52 Chevy or a 50 Marquez. I'm all about that. More the merrier.
If we can just stop Barrett Jackson from running the prices up on hot rods, we'll be fine.
That is true.
Yeah. But no, it really looks great, and I'll tell you what, you can let us come back and take a look at it when it's all done.
Sure, you know, definitely, like I said, I'm hoping this next summer to dive on it, get a little bit farther along and start doing some of the filler work. And kind of the neat part about, you know, seeing some of that finished stuff is, you know, as a matter of fact, hiding right behind us in the corner there is a 65 Lincoln that we're going to do in a top shop, and you can kind of see that one's kind of that next step past what you see here is when we're actually getting into doing the filler work. And you know, kind of the fun part is, you know, as we're talking about my buddies from the Hoodlum Car Club, you know, that's my buddy Tim, but she's having a swig off with the liquid nitro back there. You know, maybe
we're hanging out with Tim.
Maybe we can get him to come on over and talk a little bit about his car.
Hey Tim, what's up? How you been, brother?
Staying out of trouble, you know.
Yeah, hey, yeah, right. Well, you know, hey, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're doing to this Lincoln, man?
As Glenn said, we're already to the mudding part.
Sure.
As you've seen in previous programs, you guys seen it was more rough, and they got 13 inches longer, 3 inches wider, like Glenn was saying, and it was really rough when I brought it here. And as you can see, Glenn's the mud master. Like he was saying, his dad was the body guy and his uncle was the wrench. Well, that's where I'm at with him. I think we were separated at birth.
I think so. You guys are like brothers in arms.
Brother from another mother.
That's right. Yeah. Not to mention, you know, Popeye.
Yes.
Yeah, he crushed cans long ways.
He's got the
grip.
He's got the arms for that. Yeah, I was over here a couple times helping him, and when he got tired, I'd be in on it. And so this ain't my cup of tea, but
Yeah, it's a lot of work involved. It's awesome. I hope we can come back and see what this thing looks like.
Oh, you guys are more than welcome. Like I said, it's definitely the long cold winters is going to keep us keep us busy. So
Yeah, definitely got the place for it though here. This is great.
well, thank you.
Yep.
I think we need another swig of.
I think we need some more juice,
I'm
man.
getting thirsty here.
thirsty and hungry.
Right. All right.
Well, like I said, it's been a pleasure. And you know we're going to have some more sauce here before the night's up.
Well,
you know,
we're just, I'm waiting, my guy. I don't know what the heck's going on. It's been a while, so if you don't mind, I'll hang around. Oh, okay there. Oh, that's good stuff. show me that 55 O's you picked me up in, man. That thing is super cool.
Yeah, here's a the other one I was talking about with doing a top chop. If you want to come on over. This one here, 1955 holes, what I did is took 5 inches out of the roof in the front, and we actually took 4.5 inches out of the rear. So if you look at it, it's got just a little bit of a ray coming down on it. This one with the top chop, you know, like all the other ones again, with cutting it out, the top is actually narrower in the top and wider in the bottom. So what you'll end up seeing with this one is once we end up cutting the top, you'll see the splices of where we actually had to lengthen the roof back just a little bit. You'll see the cuts underneath the visor as far as we end up adding a strip in here and added another strip to the back half of the roof that was a little bit narrower because of the fact that we had to actually call it quartering, where we had to quarter the roof out to make the length right and make the width right on it. And after doing the top chop of that, once we got all the filler pieces in, what I ended up doing is I have a donor 55 holes 4-door hardtop that I actually cut the roof section out of it and actually ended up going around and dicing out the middle of the roof and set the other roof skin over the top of it, my scalping procedure that I like to call it, as far as, so that way when the time comes for finishing off this roof, you've got a nice clean crown over the top that you don't have a bunch of body work and filler on, and just having to do a little bit of body work to the outside edges. If you kind of look at the trim on this one, you know, is shortened up, and we're able to go around and fit that piece down into the back on this one, and I just stretched that top piece out because it wasn't as wide. But if you come through to where the actual vent windows and stuff are, this side you can see there's a little bit of a weld seam right here where we actually butted this together, and this is the cut actually in the pot metal, and that's what makes it tougher on some of the 50s cars with chopping them, is instead of actually steel, you've got die cast. And there's a gentleman that I think is in New Jersey named Cecil Muggsy that actually sells a rod for fusing pot metal together, and that's what that actually is that's refused back together again. You can see the extra lengths that had to get added just because of the way the proportions changed on the vent window assemblies. And actually on the quarter windows, it's kind of tucked up underneath here where the cuts actually are as far as making that seams run around. You know, underneath my visor, it's kind of tough to see, but up in the middle there's an extra section that was added in there to lengthen out that center piece, because the front half of the roof was considerably narrower than the back half of the roof with the design of the curvature of the body. So it was a considerably wider strip added in the middle of the roof on the front and a narrower one into the rear. But you know, it's one of those things where once you do it, and if you do it right, unfortunately everyone just thinks it come from the factory that way. And as you can see from pictures that I have, that it actually, all the bits and pieces that go together to make these things actually look like they came from the factory. You know, some of the first pictures is just starting with the car. It was actually, you know, like I said again, a clean Arizona car, kind of some cooked out paint. Stripped the roof down to bare metal, and you can see where all the pictures show, you know, no windows. You got to gut the car as far as through. And the first steps was actually going around and cutting the top, splitting it down the middle and lengthening it out, and that's where you see the first little L cut as far as through. And then what we did is remove the first section of the roof, and in one picture you can see where there's the back half of the roof still on it. Cut the back post and took the complete roof off, as you can see, holding the 5-inch section that we took out of the front half in my hands. Started going around and laying the pieces together. We've got on the right side, you can see the driver's side section and the driver's back section put together. And then going around and putting the other 4 pieces with my parts car, the red 4-door 55, went around, stripped the paint off the roof of that, cut the roof skin off, and once I had all the filler strips cut in the middle of the roof and the sides of the roof to actually make that structure as if it was a top chop, I cut the whole center of the roof skin out, and we took the roof skin off of the 4-door hardtop and actually went around and put her on top of the actual roof. So as you're seeing is the hole, and then the actual skin dropped over the top side of it. And then it was just hours and hours and hours of walking around and doing individual little tack welds as far as through the edge, because you never want to run a straight bead, otherwise you end up just warping up the steel. So it's a bunch of tacks making circles around till eventually you get the whole thing welded solid, and then after it's welded solid, run through, grind the welds, and then we went around and started doing some of the filler work. And as you can see from some of the pictures, there's actually the filler, and then actually getting that stuff all straightened out and put in a primer. Then after she was put in the primer, you can see the different stages where there's a little bit of the gray prime and a little bit of the tan prime as far as running through. It's all block sanding to go around and level and straighten the car out. Then there's a few pictures there of actually just in the painting process of masking it up, doing the painting, and you can see pictures of Jeff actually striping the car. The striping, as I said once before, again, is just kind of a combination effort between Jeff Williams and Brett Mason actually going around and doing the striping. Now, on this one, when you had a chance going right, I mean, it's not real pretty under the hood. It's definitely, I feel, as far as customs, is customs shouldn't have their hoods open at the shows anyway, so it's one of those things. But hiding underneath the hood of it, I pulled out the original old 24 and actually got a 455 in it. And you know, ended up going around, and it's got a turbo 4, so it's a little bit later model drivetrain. So not real pretty, but boy, when I start the key, she goes and she runs well, and I'm all about just cruising her. You know, it used to run a little hot, so I ended up having a custom aluminum radiator made and had it kind of oversized. Originally, the radiator was on the back side of the core support, so I actually moved it to the front side, and that's where you see this kick out as far as through, and then put an extra trans cooler that's actually mounted off the front side. Just try to keep everything just a little bit cleaner on it. And nice part is with this radiator now, I mean, I can idle for hours and she never gets hot on the warmest days. So, but again, all about a cruiser. Custom should have their hood down anyway. But it does definitely still keep it motivated. It's a good tire smoker. You know, running through on this car, a few of the body modifications that happened is, again, nosed it, which means shaving the trim off the front side. There used to be the Oldsmobile globe in the front that was actually embossed out, and we smoothed all of that off. You know, had Jeff Williams and Brett Mason do the pinstriping on it. This is some of their handiwork, and there used to be the big old airplane that was on the front of it, and so this body line actually stopped back here because the airplane normally sat there, so we extended the body lines all the way forward on it. You know, went through on the car, did the usual, shaving the door handles off. You know, those are actually run around through again. You can kind of see some of the seams from the top chop. I think it's kind of fun to have a little bit of that stuff exposed. You know, that way people get a chance to see it. If you look close with this window up here, you can see that extra, you know, 3.5-inch section, because again, with chopping and lengthening that stuff out, you know, this originally wasn't long enough, so I had to add pieces to be able to go around and cover for the top side of the glass. You know, going through the back half of the body, you know, again, kind of a little bit of a mild custom. These are actually Olds 98 taillights. This is a Super 88 model, so this would have been the smaller body, big motor for, at the time, the 98s were kind of a little bit more the luxury cars, the ones that had more chrome trim, and these are 98 taillights, so these are actually about another inch and a half longer than the 88s, and it has this extra chrome band on here, so it's actually the 98 taillights. It's kind of an unusual car at the fact that it is a reverse light delete car, which normally you'd see the reverse lights, and they've got that special little plate. I also have it as a radio delete, which is kind of unusual, where there's a smooth plate on the dashboard. They actually, you know, got rid of the radio and just did the usual shaving the trim off the back. I was kind of always, you know, going back and forth because I really think Oldsmobile has very nice looking trim on it, but you know, Custom can't have chrome trim. It's got to be nosed and decked. So we just kept the tasteful stuff and kind of cleaned her up the way I think the way the designers originally planned on going around and having the car. You know, if you want to see, like I was talking about in the interior, the way I did it up, it's another love it or hate it thing. You know, people either love it or they hate it. You know, I think it's kind of fun. It's you know, did the old leopard print. You can see the shifter as far over the dash. You know, kind of hiding in front of the shrunken head. You can see the smooth plate that's between there. That's normally where a radio would be, but with this car being a radio delete, you know, that was of course obviously gone and missing. What I ended up doing on this car, because it's still like the tunes when we're cranking, is it actually has the secret audio on it. There's a little box that's kind of hiding around in the corner of the dashboard, and it does have a CD changer in it, so we can still go around and stack up a bunch of CDs and, you know, put on the tunes and do some cruising with her. The steering wheel that is also on it, that's a little bit of a change too. That's actually a 50-old steering wheel, which that's actually a much larger steering wheel than the 55s on it. It's one of those things where it kind of adds to the effect a little bit of driving it. You got to kind of get used to looking right through the middle of the steering wheel and below the visor when you're driving. It takes a little to get used to, but it's all fun part of the show, if anything. Hey Rick, come on over here. I don't know if you've seen this one that just came in. My buddy Pat's here's Nash. He can tell you a little bit about it.
All right, well this it's 46 Nash. We chopped it, took 5 inches out of the front and 3 out of the rear. It's a 4-door, so it made it even more fun. Filled all the seams, put 55, Glenn?
Yeah, 55 volts headlights.
55 volts headlights in it.
And Nash always had kind of some funky looking headlights in the front, and it was real flat through there and kind of making everything flow. We ended up taking the 55s and putting them on it, and at least it makes everything kind of have that little bit of a rake like the top chop on it. End up going around and putting a 49 Plymouth bumper on it, and obviously the Plymouths were a lot narrower than the Nashes, and with that kind of, you know, horizontal lines of the grill and the lower grill, we figured out the Plymouth bumper would be a good one with the ribs running around through, so we had to add about 9 or 10 inches in the middle of it that you see to get the width, you know, comparatively. You still have to build the roll pan between it and the grill surround, but it's all still a work in progress.
When you chop cars that have this style of window in them, they end up really small. And my thing was, when we chopped it, I don't care for that look, so we tried to make it, you know, fit the size of the car and the windows. And it took quite a bit of cutting and stretching to get it to fit in right. And with leaving, my thing was leaving the bare metal and the welds, you know, people can see what actually goes into chopping it and making them bigger and seeing all the work that actually goes into it.
Makes the roof's kind of got a nice slight taper to it, and trying to keep that quarter window so proportionally still follows through with everything running around. And like you said, a lot of times they chop and they get really squatty back there, and it just ends up looking really weird. And with this one, like I said, with the rake chop, it was 5 out of the front and 3 in the rear, so they kind of had to go around and change proportions of everything to kind of squat her down a little bit on it. And on the very back half of the area at the trunk, once we chopped it, the whole roof went forward, and we ended up having to separate all the door posts and slide them backwards to go around and get them back to the openings again. And we took the actual trunk of the body, cut it through here, and actually cut it down. And what we did is actually laid the trunk lid down to kind of flow with the roof, and that's where you see this extra 2.5-inch filler strip through there. That was the difference of once we laid it down at the space between the original roof and the old roof as far as there. So made a pretty clean chop, a little bit of re-engineering and kind of resetting the flow to it, but kind of makes her, instead of being kind of the stately Nash, kind of making her a little bit more sleek and definitely a lot more cool and custom. The rails are all below the rear tail pan on it. As you can see, it's a little bit of a work still in progress, but on the Nashes, actually, with part of lowering this car, it's actually way lower than what this thing was stock. It was really very tall. The frame rails that you see here actually used to be down below the rear tail pan, and what we ended up doing is at this stretch back here, we took an angular cutout of the frame rails and actually brought the tops of the rails all the way up in the back, which allowed the springs to actually come farther up into the floor and drop the whole rear end of the car down. And the front end's got cut coils, and we actually dropped the spring pockets down to go around and get the front end closer to the ground.
Because nobody made any kind of suspension kits for a Nash, so it's all homemade engineered drop kit.
It's got the fine seam about everyone that has a tendency to deal in Nashes is just a little bit of the unusual sorts of kind of, in general, mostly a lot of the older guys that are really tweaked about you don't mess up a Nash, you got to keep a Nash stock. So
we're definitely going to turn some heads and raise some eyebrows when this starts rolling around.
Hey Rick, have you seen this one yet? Yeah, Rick, this one's a 1962 Chrysler 300 Sport. They actually ended up going and having the lettered series cars or the sport cars, and this is actually the one that is the sport. So it's actually the 383 and dual quads, you know, versus, you know, having a bench seat in the back opposed to a bucket. But made it as an early 60s custom car is kind of what I like. It's shaved, you know, nose and deck. Got rid of the handles, got rid of some of the trim on it. I've got it lowered down, got our good old corn alcohol running in that baby. She's running dual quads with early speed equipment on it. It's you know, big chrome bass boat flake in the roof, satin Viper red on her. It's striped by, you know, my buddy Jeff Williams went around with Del Swanson with his artwork. As you can see, there's a little bit of stuff kind of floating all around on it. If you'd like, it can kind of show you under the hood. You may get a kick out of that. We've got her equipped with a little of the early speed equipment. We've got the Offenhauser manifold on it, the old Offie fin aluminum valve covers on her, running the Edelbrock dual quads, and running ceramic metallic coated exhaust manifolds on her. We did a switch over on her, at least if you're going to make her go, you want to make her stop. I've got drop spindles with disc brakes on it. Switched it over to the dual master cylinder on this one. So just a little, it definitely isn't the world's fastest car, but it's a good cruiser. You know, I always laugh and say sometimes a little more show than go, but it's still a fun ride. On the grill, you can see actually the grill of my 300 Crest in the back. We've got the medallions that Arlo Dillman made from Wisconsin Hot Rod Radio, if any of you guys have seen him on before. It's with our Hoodlum Car Club, we always say the fact, if you see some of our t-shirts, we've got the skull with the steel plate in the eye, and Arlo says that's our skull before it got the steel plate. That's what caused it to go around and be there. And on the quarters of it, you'll see we've got our also Hoodlum skull back there. Some of the boys like to refer to it as the mutant baby skulls. They're a little funky. interior on this car, it's one of those ones where Chrysler and good old designer Virgil Exner, I thought he did an awesome job. So it was one of those ones where I didn't change a lot around in this car. I just figured it's one of those things, why mess with perfection? So it's just the original red interior as far as running through, the split, you know, bench bucket design front. Like I said, you know, the letter series cars had a console that ran all the way down with you know, kind of buckets in the back seat, but this one's a bench. And this car originally came from Arizona that I picked up. It had typical, just kind of a really oxidized, you know, cooked out interior. So I replaced the driver's seat bottom, but other than that, this is all the original interior that I just went back around, cleaned up, and re-vinyled. Even the carpeting in it is still, you know, 1962 original yet. So it was a pretty nice car that I actually started with before we went around and started doing the building on it. You know, it still had a little unfortunate Chrysler's integrity, where even with an Arizona car, I had to put a few patches here and there on the car just from sand getting in the crevices and things. But she's like I said, you can see, taking a peek at the dashboard, it's actually the old, what they call the Astrodome dash on it, and it actually runs electroluminescent gauges, where it's actually what they call a power pack that kind of lights them up instead of the usual bulbs. It's kind of neat. At nighttime it actually kind of glows a little bit as far as running through. Kind of a fun, you know, early 60s dash design. And of course, the early Mopars, you've got your push button shift over on the left side of the dash there, and it doesn't actually have a park. The park is actually the parking brake that you see to the left on it. There's a little brake drum off the back of the transmission, and that's what actually locks his car into park. So if you don't end up doing that and you're parked on a hill, she's going to roll. So it's just one of those things, you always got to make sure that's on, and you know, and occasionally the springs break on those things too.
I'm Tom Syme. Got a 48 Willys pickup, converted to a crew cab. Yes, it's kind of the neatest thing on it. It's the motor. It's got a 427 big block Chevy. Threw it in. At one time it was a 350 Chevy that came out of a Suburban. Back in the 60s it was a tow vehicle for a sprint car. We kind of took it all apart. It was a standard cab, and started from scratch and did everything over again. Okay, like I said, it's a 1970. It actually was a 402. We bored it 125 thousandths over, which makes it a standard bore 427. 11.5 to 1 compression, forged all internals, roller rockers, pretty much every goodie you could put in from the 60s. Obviously dual quads, puts out probably 475, 500 horse. Got a turbo 350 behind it. NP 205 1-ton transfer case behind that, because it's a 4-wheel drive. Has Ford 9-inch in the back, 35 splines, locker, pretty much all the goodies you could ever think of. It's quite fun to drive. It gets going, takes and spins the tires quite well. So, and a little bit later we'll probably do that for you. What we ended up doing here is, you can picture this being the back of the cab. This door jamb stayed. This is all stock through here. We took the back panel of the truck, moved it back, took the front jambs, which would be this part here, and took and turned it around, put it on obviously the opposite sides. You know, it takes right front and left, you know, so you get everything to work right. The door jamb from the back of another cab, and then fabricated all the pieces to go in between. Made everything stretch across. The doors, you can see the split right here and down in here. Actually, it's on this side. Actually is the back half of another door from the opposite side. And then you just do a little pie cut to straighten it out. And then the roof is from a 60 Jeep station wagon, and it's actually cut lengthwise. I think I took about 24 inches out of the middle of it, and then a few pie cuts. And if you go inside, you can actually see the weld seam where it was put back together. And then when we built it, we used stock rockers, and we actually built a seat riser so we can get some cheater storage for it, be able to carry a few things without them rolling around in the cab. The paint job is all custom. Obviously we have pinstriping on the fenders, real elaborate design. There's even a gold leaf cockroaches on each fender. This is a design my friend Jeff, who did all the painting, from Jeff Williams Signs. He had it down on one of his drawing boards to Del Swanson original. We took and had him throw that one on each side. The Tommy Guns Butcher Shop, it's kind of the name of my shop, somewhat faux name. We just kind of do it for the fun of it. It's kind of interesting. I was a gunsmith for a number of years, so we just kind of threw it in and played with it for a little while. Everything on here was done, I think, about 3 years ago. Then we come back, we got rat fink, of course. Everybody needs a rat fink on something. Then you go around to the tailgate, and the tailgate has the 4 phases of a skull that Jeff decided. We had to wait a little while for this. This sat down in his shop for 3 years waiting to come back. I've been running around with a rusty tailgate for the last 3 years. Finally got him, goaded him into finally finishing it up so we can get the finishing touch on the truck. And then over here, because I like to burn tires off, he came up with this one, and it says Inner Fender Well Vulcanization, a Specialty. We're on probably our 15th or 16th set of tires. As you can see, we rubber coat the inside of the wheel wells quite well, and the back of the license plate. This set of tires has, I think, like about 150 miles on them. We bought them after a party here last year. Burned them from brand new right down about halfway. Then a party at my house, we decided we just get into it a little bit harder, and we ended up burning them right to what they are now.
Keep going.
He's at 240, we can't.
Those are definitely slicks now, man. Look at that.
Tough to be cool.
Rick, you're looking a little buzzed. Maybe you ought to get off that stool and sit on something with a little back support.
Oh man, I'll tell you, I think I need to look at the stars, Rock.
Let's go this way.
All right, brother. Oh. Oh man. Wow, look at those stars. Hey man, those stars are moving all over the place. Oh Bill, why did you make me do this by myself? Holy cow, it's morning already. Wow, man, where am I? What is this place all about?
Hey man, I got your car all done. We've got it in the shop over there.
Hey Rocky, thank God I found him. I didn't know where I was.
Let's go take a look at the car, but I think before we go out there, I think you need to have another swig.
A little eye opener. Oh man. Okay. I don't know how long I can hang out with you guys. Maybe I'll have to live here. Well, folks, I hope you liked my little story. Like I said, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. The places are a figment maybe of my imagination, maybe a figment of yours. But I'll tell you what, I'll never forget that day. Till tomorrow. Adios. Till tomorrow.
Tough to be cool.
Tough to be cool.